Ha ha.
Ha. Fucking shit. All right, greetings. Welcome back to Blackbird News, where everything is connected. How y'all doing? Sorry, I had lots of audio issues trying to start the show. That's why we're late. I apologize. I can't really do much about that, and except for just roll with it. You probably heard me cursing into the microphone, which is really annoying. Sorry, but my apologies. I was just frustrated. All right. We're here. It's Friday, and we're going to talk about some things. Today is Friday Fix, where the lines are a little more. The lines are open. Call-in is open all day. A little more interactive with the chat. We are live on Rockfin, on Call-in, and on YouTube. But good to see you all. I started. Well, I wanted to start the show. The thumbnail says is a picture of coral, which are being bleached off of Costa Rica at the moment because of high seawater temperature. And it's unfortunate that we have people who don't know anything about climate change trying to tell people about climate change. Jimmy Dore, I'm talking to you. You shouldn't be talking about climate change. You're talking. You're kind of talking out of your ass, man, and you're doing people a disservice. You know, when there's more coral than ever. Yeah, in one part of the Great Barrier Reef, and not ever. It's in the last 36 years. There's been major what about the major bleaching events that happen? The major bleaching events happened because there was, extremely high water temperature, which caused a lot of damage to the coral reefs, and they can recover quickly. That's nice, but what happens when the next marine heat wave happens? And so we're going to see more of these bleaching events again. Also, there's there's bleaching going on in southern Florida right now. Are you covering that, Jimmy Dore or Kim Iverson? No, you're not. I'd advise you to talk to people that know about climate change before you decide that climate change is a fake or a hoax, because it's just a popular opinion among truthers, which is, sure, they're right about a lot of things, but that doesn't mean they're right about this, okay? This is just a meme or an idea that seems to be popular among a certain group of people, and because they're lying to us about everything means they're lying to us about this. And what they're lying about is not that it's actually happening. What they're lying about is that it's way worse than they're letting us know. That's the conspiracy, okay? Just trying to clear that up for you. And if you'd like to have a conversation with me anytime, I'm open to it anytime. I'm gonna clip this piece out, and I'm gonna post it to Twitter. You guys can share it. I'm gonna @ Jimmy Dore and @ Kim Iverson. If you guys want to have me on your show to talk about climate change and what's really happening with climate change, please, by all means. Or have another scientist. I'm not a scientist. Have a scientist on that knows something about climate change that can tell you what's going on. But you can't, saying that there's more, coral than ever is a completely cherry-picked, bogus fact, if you will, a bogus clue that climate change isn't happening, because you're ignoring all the other things that are happening on the planet, which are pretty outrageous. There's so much going on. There's so many weather extremes. There's so many heat waves. There's so much, there are just things happening all the time that point to the fact that the planet is warming and that we're seeing the effects of that warming. So, before you jump onto that train, I highly suggest that you do a little research into the actual science of what's going on, or at least pay attention to the things that are happening, right? At bare minimum, hey, there's all these heat waves in Italy. Oh, there's crazy heat waves in China. Oh, there's crazy floods and storms all over the planet. How about you cover those stories and tie them in with climate change? Why are you not covering those stories? Because you don't want to tie it in with climate change, because that would be unpopular with your viewers. And so, that's weak sauce. I heard, what's his name? Is it Graham Elwood? Graham Elwood used to cover climate change. Maybe he still does, but I heard him on a show one time say, I don't do climate change videos because they aren't very popular. They don't get a lot of views. It's because climate change is a hard subject to talk about, because if it's actually happening, it means we're in trouble, and nobody wants to deal with the fact that we're in trouble. If we are indeed in trouble, somebody needs to talk to people in a clear, layman's manner. Jimmy Dore, Kim Iverson, anybody else who wants to, present the evidence and the science in a clear, understandable way, so that people don't get caught up in scientific jargon and professor speak and all that kind of stuff, right? You can just lay it out and go, here's what's happening. There's lots of people that are capable of doing that. I am one of those people. There are lots of people that are capable of laying out the science for you in a very clear, precise way. So before, you go down that road, how about get the other side of the, because you don't know that much about it. And before you go down the road of saying it's not real, you should actually do some journalism, investigate. Anyways. There is coral bleaching on the Costa Rican coast. Why is there coral bleaching? Because we're having major, major marine heat waves all over the planet. All over the planet, the water is incredibly warm. Here we go. This is the result of the marine heat wave on the east side of the Pacific. We are entering what excuse me, many will call a super El Nino, which means a very strong El Nino, which means very, very warm ocean water welling up and doing damage. Come on, man. Let's go. This is off the Pacific side of Costa Rica today, coral bleaching. So are you going to talk about that one, Jimmy Dore, on your show? Hey, there's serious marine heat waves going on the Eastern Pacific, and it's bleaching coral in Costa Rica. You going to talk about this news story? You should. Because it's happening. And I just told you why it's happening, because we're entering a super El Nino, but there's incredible marine heat all over the globe. There's hot, incredibly warm temperatures. What does a marine heat do? What does a warmer planet do? Sorry, I didn't really want to show this one. Not yet, anyways. Here is 40 dead, 9 missing, thousands evacuated from floods and landslides in South Korea. Are you guys going to talk about Kim Iverson, Jimmy Dore? Are you guys going to talk about this story? Hello? Are you covering this news? There's major flooding, crazy flooding going on all over the planet. Are you guys talking about this news? Hello? This is a news story. Are you going to cover it? Journalists. I'm waiting. Will you guys do your viewers right? Even though it's not popular, even if it's not a popular story, or it kind of makes people feel a little icky and maybe makes people a little scared, you probably do them better. Do them a solid by covering this news as a credible news story. Because look, see, it's actually happening. Look, it's happening. Look, it's happening. And I'm speaking as a fan of these journalists, of Jimmy Dore and Kim Iverson and others. I'm a fan of your work. I love your work, but when you just jump off the diving board of like goofiness just because it's, well, that's what all the other truthers are saying, then you're not doing journalism. You're just following the pack. And you lose your credibility that way. And you don't want to do that, do you? You think you're gaining credibility by saying the things you're saying, but you're actually going to lose your credibility as time goes on. And I'm just trying to help you out. That's all. Anyways, South Korea is facing some serious storms. These videos are all over Twitter, which is why I know that Kim Iverson, Jimmy Dore, anybody else who's covering, who's doing journalism is seeing these videos. I absolutely know you're seeing these videos. They are wall to wall on Twitter all day long. All day long, wall to wall, floods. You guys don't see this, and you don't want to cover this? Why? Because it would make you actually have to investigate what's going on. Hey, on a warmer planet, there's more water vapor in the air. I'm just explaining it real simple like for you. There's more water vapor in there, which leads to the floods and the atmospheric rivers and the rain bombs and the destruction that we're seeing. That's what it is. That's called, very simple science for you. Warming planet, water vapor comes down, floods people out. Anyways, that's just a very simple aspect of global warming, but it's pretty big. It's doing a lot of damage, isn't it? 12 deaths occurred in a road tunnel in central city of Cheongju, where 16 vehicles, including a bus, were swamped by a flash flood. This is just one story. Out of over the last 2 weeks, there's been every single day. There's so many flooding videos. I can't even show them all to you. I can only show you a couple and go look what's happening. This is crazy. Anyways. No, I don't. I disagree, Scott. I don't think that Jimmy Dore is taking money from anybody. I think that he's just repeating something that has favorability among a certain crowd of journalists. And it's unfortunate because it's just wrong. And it's it's wrong on many levels, and you guys know how many levels those are, but whatever. Just because it's fashionable, it's just a fashionable thing to say. And yes, I am in agreement that the authoritarian crowd, the fascist crowd, are going to try to use, I'm in agreement, they're going to try to use climate change in the worst possible way to enslave people, to corral people, to, et cetera, et cetera. But when you start saying like, well, I don't know if climate change is really a thing, that's when you start actually scrambling people's brains, and that is not, it's not fair. It's not cool. Anyways. Phoenix will become the first. How about this news story? Any journalists out there going to cover this story? Hello? Anybody want to talk about this one? Phoenix will become the first major city in American history to average over 100 degrees Fahrenheit for an entire month. They're actually going to average over 110. I mean, they're on a streak of like, I don't know what it is, 22 days of over 110 degrees. They're gonna go almost an entire month over 110 degrees. That is wild. The city has experienced a virtually continuous heat wave since the beginning of July, with an average high of 114 and an average low of 90 Fahrenheit. That's the average low. That's how cool it cools off at night in Phoenix. While Phoenix is used to severe summer heat, this July has been unprecedented in city history, with a record 3 straight weeks of 110 Fahrenheit heat. 3 straight weeks. That's 21 days. They broke the record. And this is the forecast for the rest of the month. Look at this. They're going to have an entire month over 110 degrees. That is unbelievable. That's crazy. And that's a news story. So how about y'all cover it and stuff? There's no such thing. This climate change thing is a hoax, except for the fact that it's getting a lot warmer. The record streak of hot nights is particularly a particular concern because repeatedly hot nighttime temperatures do not allow the body to recover from hot days, increasing the risk of heat illnesses and even death. Unfortunately for Phoenix, this ongoing heat wave looks to continue for the rest of the month, with daytime highs expected to continue to soar above 110 Fahrenheit, with nights only dipping into the 90s. Fenrir makes a really good point. Phoenix, Salt Lake City, and Las Vegas are de facto stranded assets. The fact that people still live there is a form of climate denialism. True effing story. I mean, like, moving to Las Vegas or Phoenix at this point in life is really just not a good idea. I understand it's very cheap to live there. I get it. I mean, Phoenix and Las Vegas are literally just suburbs of Los Angeles. That's all they are. Really huge suburbs of Los Angeles. People that can't afford to live in LA, they're like, you know what? I think I'll move to Phoenix. Hella cheap over here. People do that all the time. Or they move to Texas. But why would you move to Phoenix or Las Vegas? I don't understand that. I mean, it's bad enough that I'm in LA, I can't really leave. If I had the wherewithal to do so, I probably would. If I didn't have, ties here and reasons why I could not leave, I probably would. But LA is not nearly Las Vegas or Phoenix, which is just, waiting for, when I was talking the other day about the 130, 135 degree day, most likely that'll happen in Phoenix first, right? And then people will be like, well, yeah, well, it's gotten this hot here. Well, no. Well, it's a pretty hot city. We're used to hot temperatures. Well, most likely it'll happen there. And when it does, I don't know. There's, it's just not going to be much to say. When you break your temperature record by 10 or 15 degrees, I don't know. I don't know what there is to say. When London sees 90s or almost 100-degree temperatures 3 years in a row. London, right? Like, that's not weird at all. No. And the goofballs will come, oh, it happened in 1974. It was this hot for 3 days. Okay. Meaning what? It's consistently hotter. Yes, it's been 119 degrees in Phoenix before. It's been 120, been hotter than that. But almost an entire continuous month of over 110 degrees has not happened. And explain that one away. Talk about that one. Anyways. Climate Kev says, oh yeah, we're starting to enter the exponential part of the abrupt mass extinction. By the end of next summer, most of the world will start noticing the world is actually ending, meaning all life on Earth will soon succumb to abrupt mass extinction. That certainly is doomy, but not against it. There's a bunch of people saying, oh, this is every summer in Phoenix. Okay. Except for the part where it was above 110 degrees for a record amount of days. Except for that part, I don't know. Had a really good point in my brain, and I've totally lost it. Oh, what I was going to say is, I think, here's another crazy random story. Massive hail flows down the street in Sorrento, Italy. Massive. This is insane. This is like July 21st in Italy. They have an insane hailstorm going on. Again, with the disaster news is a good outlet to follow, but like floods, hailstorms, craziness, extreme weather. You don't want to cover any of those stories, dear journalists. None of that. No? Not newsworthy? It's not happening? Okay. What about the high levels of UV? That's a story y'all could cover. You know that the UV is, the ozone layer is shredded. The UV is off the charts pretty much everywhere. There's a story you could cover. Is that too scary? Is that too weird? Would that bum your audience out? I don't know. Probably would. Probably would bum people out. I don't like doing stories about climate change because they just bum people out. We got to keep people happy and angry. Oh, I watched. Joseph sent me a cool video by a channel called Doomer Optimism. Just, somebody once called me Green MAGA, which I think is hilarious. But I mean, we live in a time of oxymorons, I guess. We live in a state of extremes to one side or the other. I probably would fall under the category of doomer optimist. I don't know about green MAGA though. I'm not MAGA. I'm just I'm just open to ideas from all sides of the spectrum being correct. That's all. That's all that is. So I find that both sides of the spectrum can be hilariously, dangerously wrong, and I believe that both sides can have some pretty legitimate issues to talk about. And so I'm that's where I'm at. But again, every side too has its blinders. The people on all sides can be completely blind to certain things that are fairly obvious to other people who understand the issue. Anyways, William, what you got for us?
Hey, Kev, can you hear me okay?
Yeah,
Too loud? Am I all right?
you're good.
Okay. Well, coincidentally, I get emails from people I've signed up with. Just got this one: global network of over 1,500 scientists and professionals prepared an urgent message. Climate science should be less political, while climate policy should be more scientific. Okay. Scientists should openly address uncertainties and exaggerations in their predictions of global warming, while politicians should dispassionately count the real costs as well as the imagined benefits of their policy measures. Fair enough, but the heading of the article is, there is no climate emergency.
Right. I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
Yeah.
1,500 scientists who are not. The problem with that list is that a lot of people aren't scientists.
Right.
They're not certainly not climate scientists. It's a very, and then the people at the head of the list are like Lord Monckton. It's just people like that, like well-known, well-traveled like climate deniers. So it's just like,
Right.
it's fine if you want to make a list or you want to send a letter and stuff, but like based on what what's the credibility of your of where you stand on this? And I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that there's a lot of people out there that don't get climate science, or they just don't see it, or they just don't understand it. They don't want to. They don't believe it, and for various reasons, mainly because they don't feel it. Right? It's not something they can touch, see, taste, or hear. Because if things are fairly normal in your world, then why would you believe that something's happening? Right? Like climate change has been theoretical for a long time. And that's an issue with it, and it's a valid issue, is that for a long time climate change has been theoretical. But what was not theoretical in the past was people choking on smog, right? People
Right.
living in clouds of coal ash and lead, lead in the air, lead floating in the air, and right. There was a time when we could literally feel ourselves being poisoned by the things that we were doing.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a huge movement to clean up the air, to clean up the oceans. What's the Lake Erie used to be on fire, right?
Mm-hmm.
From chemicals. I mean, there was a big movement to clean all that up, and we have on some levels cleaned a lot of stuff up, but that doesn't mean we're still not destroying the planet hand over fist, and probably makes it even harder for people to understand that it's going on, because they can't. You probably might want to live in Beijing or Delhi for a year and then talk about there's no climate change. choke on some smog for a year, and then go, all right, yeah, totally no climate change. We're totally not destroying the planet. Everything is fine. That's the thing is that I think people, we live in a world where, again, I just repeat myself. If you can't see something happening outside your window, then you're like, no, I just don't think I believe that. It's easy to talk yourself into that.
Well, I'd like to make. I used to go to College of Fordham, and I'd drive down the 95, and I'd see this brown haze. I'd be driving into, over the skyline,
Mm-hmm.
and I then transferred to URI anyway. My degree's in resource economics, and I would call into Rush Limbaugh, and I tried that for a little while because we had 153 days one year where the air was unhealthy to breathe, like the worst quality.
Yeah.
And of course, I got him on the phone. He's like, "Who made up those regulations?" EPA. I said, "Rush." Oh, a bunch of liberals, of course. The typical party line. And then he hung up on me, and he kept talking like I wasn't there. And I called back, talked to the program manager, liked me, put me three times over 3 days, and each time Rush. The last time, as soon as I said, "Hi, Rush," click, he hung up right away. So no matter what statistics I put before him, he'd counter them with some ad hominem, attack, based on liberal policies, yada, yada.
Right.
And, it's sad because you can see the pollution, and and I don't know what it takes. We live in a weird world, and
right.
Incidentally, or maybe not, he died of lung cancer.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
the irony.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Yeah, the irony. Maybe it's karma, but whatever. But this chart they have in here, something that they don't tell you in this article that I put in. If you scroll down, you'll see a chart. They go through over the millions of years the levels of CO2, but what they don't say is since human civilization has been on the planet that we know of, the CO2 is as high as it's ever been. What it was, 500 million years ago, there were no humans on the planet. I mean, how is that relevant to human civilization? I don't get it.
Well, that's somebody tried to make that point the other day. Somebody was playing a conversation between John Kerry, who I'm no fan of. I'm not a fan of John Kerry. John Kerry and some senator, I don't know who was, or congressperson, Congress critter. And this person was, trying to ask John Kerry about climate change and brought up that very point. But John Kerry did a terrible job of relaying information back to him.
Mm.
I mean, he kind of came at it, somewhat, he came at it from a you don't even understand what you're talking about attitude, which, isn't helpful.
Right now.
Yeah. And that's we need to get past, people who are climate change aware need to get past the whole it's just settled science and you don't understand what you're talking about. Need to get past that. We're going to have to get past that thing, because even though it seems obvious and seems like something people should understand, they don't. And so you're going to probably go a lot farther saying, well, here's what's happening. So, but John Kerry did bring up the point. He's like, but the guy was like, yes, there were times when carbon dioxide in the air was 2,000 parts per million. And then John Kerry was like, but we weren't here. We didn't live here then. He was like, we weren't here to experience that. And even if we were, the thing is that, the state changes between ice Earth and hot Earth.
Sure.
Are so major that it pretty much changes how everything works on the planet, right? So if we had been here when it was super, super hot, and then and then the ice age came, it probably would have wiped out humans, most humans, right? Because we would have been acclimated to that particular state of the planet. And that, I think that's what people are, what people miss, and also what John Kerry did not explain to him. Look, we weren't here. It's the rate of change. He didn't even say anything about that. It's exactly how quickly we are changing everything. The fact that we, in 100 years of industrial civilization, this we have changed the planet this radically.
Sure.
Like he could have said that and he didn't. He just kind of mumbled a bunch of stuff and acted like a jerk. And I was like, dude, you're really blowing it here. Because the senator or whoever it was that was talking to him didn't have his points were dumb, but like it made him look like he was saying something significant because John Kerry didn't really, the way he answered was full of just like, well, you don't know what you're talking about. You know what I'm saying? Like, and so, yeah, that's not helpful. That's not helpful. But that doesn't prove, somebody was like, oh, see how he's answering and he doesn't have anything to say. And he's, that proves it's wrong. I'm like, no, that proves he just isn't a good communicator on it. And doesn't, he thinks that he doesn't have to tell this guy why climate change, how it works. And if you're the head of an agency or a head of a department or you're a climate change czar or whoever you are, you better get real good explaining those things, in very layman's terms. Here's what's happening. Here's why it's happening. Here's why it's bad. Here's where we're going. Like, it doesn't do it. It's no skin off your back, to do that. Okay, I'm going to invite both Lance and Joseph to speak. All right.
Sure. Can I make a comment on what you just said?
Yes.
Okay. Well, all we got to do is look at the permafrost. We know there's been, lush forests in areas that are frozen now. But like you said, it's about the rate of change and how are we going to adapt that quickly. It's going to be, it's what we can do to slow the rate of change is what's critical now. Of course, Joseph will echo that. And I'll defer to Joseph and all those things. I want to mention one more quick things we could talk about another time.
Yeah.
Have you heard of Robert David Steele, the ex-CIA?
Yes, the Steele dossier.
Well,
isn't he the Steele dossier guy?
Huh? I don't know. He was.
Or is that a different person?
I think it's a different Steele. But
okay.
Robert David Steele, he was on the International Tribunal for Natural Justice about sex trafficking and child abuse and his reports, but also on false flag operations. So I put a couple links in there. He's ex-CIA, and I know it's not the time or the channel to do it. You know what I mean? But maybe we could talk about that in the future. I just want to direct you to think about those.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for
sometime.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Thanks for linking them. I appreciate it. Yeah.
Thanks,
man. You can stay in and speak if you want.
Sure.
William.
Okay.
Lance and Joseph, you guys are in as speakers. If you guys want to unmute yourself, you're welcome to.
Yeah. So just a few minutes ago, actually, there was two short segments on. Jimmy Dore show. I don't know if you're a Jimmy Dore fan or not.
I am a Jimmy Dore fan. I watch him pretty regularly.
It's funny because there's people I agree with him a lot, but there's people I actually agree with more than him. But I love the guy because he's just, anyway.
Yeah, no. I'm only speaking about Jimmy Dore on this particular subject because I think he's just jumping in the boat with on this subject. He's jumping in a boat. He's not aware of what really is going on.
Well, that's one of my criticisms because hey, if you're Walter Cronkite, you're not writing the news, but you read it before you go on camera. So Jimmy Dore won't be a hypocrite. He says, hey, in fact, he was just saying this about Al Gore. Hey, if it comes out of your mouth, I don't care who you cited, it's your words. So Jimmy Dore, I guarantee he's getting stuff fed to him by his staff, and he's just reading it, and he's just going with it. It's not always what.
Well, I don't know if it's his staff as much as I think it's other. Jimmy Dore has basically taken the line, and it's not a bad line of thought necessarily. He's like, well, over the last few years, and especially because of COVID, and this is why I understand why people think like this, because of COVID, people's eyes were really opened to a certain level of deceit going on, with the powers that be. Even people that before COVID weren't, might not have understood the depth of it, right? So, I mean, so Jimmy Dore, I think through, he's always been skeptical and distrustful and is critical of people in power, right? He's always been that way. He's not any different. It's not a new thing. But during COVID, he started taking up the line. It turns out the conspiracy theorists were right. They were 100. They're batting 1,000. That's what I hear from all the time on a bunch of channels. I'm like, all right, this is actually dangerous because this is just as bad as turning on CNN. Click. I'm going to watch some CNN today because they only tell me the truth. They always tell me the truth, and they only tell me the truth. That's not how it works. That's not how information works most of the time. What happens is, especially on mainstream media channels, is you get some truth and you get some lies and you get it all mixed in there. So, but you believe that you're watching the news, and you believe you're watching, credible people giving you credible news, right? So you start to believe everything that they say.
I think you're mixing some things. Okay.
No. But what I'm saying is when you get to a point where the conspiracy theorists are batting 1,000, that's actually not true, because there are some conspiracies out there that are kind of laughable, right? Like a lot of people are like, yeah, maybe I'm not going to go on with that one, right? Maybe not that one. There are plenty out there to believe in. Trust me, I like conspiracies. But I'm not. But I don't. Not all. I'm not gonna. 100% go like, yes, all of these things are true. And you have to use discernment again. So he's in a space. Jimmy Dore is in a space where it's like, he's kind of everything he hears from the conspiracy crowd. He's like, well, maybe I'm going to go on. I'm going to go along with him on that one too. And he's starting to do that with climate change now. Now he's going along with the conspiracy theorists on, the idea that they're not telling us the truth about climate change just because it's the bad people in charge are always lying, and that's just not.
No, I don't.
That's just not a credible stance to take. I'm sorry, it's just not.
Well, I don't know, man. I'm a heterodox thinker, okay, and I don't consider myself a lefty, even though I check all the lefty boxes. Pro-choice, guaranteed, not basic income, but living wage, everything. Universal health care. I want everybody to be unionized, okay? But
yeah,
at the same time, this is going to sound nuts, right? The vast majority of the problems we have been totally caused by the true lefties. I don't mean Democrats that went corrupt. I don't mean Democrats that turned their back on the working class. All that's true. I mean true, honest to goodness progressives. Not all of them. Some see through it. Okay. Here's what I mean. And before the Unabomber died, I thought, man, if only this guy didn't kill people, he deserved every life sentence that he should have gotten.
Well,
but anyway, so if you just would, I don't know if you saw this, but he played a clip from Charlie Rose, and it's only about 2 minutes long. Okay. And it's Carl Sagan, who's pretty fancy scientist. He wasn't like one of these Bill Nye the Science Guy who dabbles. He was a real deal, okay? Carl Sagan, highly respected, just a public-facing scientist,
Sure.
And he said, we can't just depend on science and technology. See, that's a left-wing thing. And now you could talk about the know-nothing Republicans, and I'll say that they're full of crap with their, like George W. Bush. I go for my gut, intuition, yeah, bullshit. Okay, so this is not an either-or. But the left is the one that wants meritocracy. We want credentials. We want PhDs. But then they control the institutions that produce the PhDs, which used to mean you come up with something new. But what the hell do I know? I have 3 years of college and no degree. But the people in that field will tell you it's all fake. It's all phony. The peer-reviewed journals aren't. And by the way, let me just finish with this, if I could, Black. Jimmy Dore said the same thing I did. When COVID hit, I believed him. I wasn't just like, oh, authoritarian, screw that. Okay, I was like, yeah, I was washing off my groceries. And I wash my hands about 50 times a day. Like it's just kind of almost like a little OCD thing going on.
Sure.
And I was doing it 100 times a day. And I was taking 30 seconds with super hot water. I bought it all. I didn't assume they were lying just because I heard a few conspiracy theories against it. Oh, come on, this is bad. Then we know that the stuff that they knew in late 2019 and by February and March of 2020, they literally lied about everything regarding COVID. And by the way, when I look at global warming, and I'll stop here, but when you look at global warming, it's a hoax. Because even if everything they're saying is true, they're not lifting any fingers to really fix it. And I can give you some examples of that.
Well,
it's bogus, whether it's true or not.
Okay, I got. Thank you, Lance. Hold on, let's let Joseph get in here for a little bit because we're running low on time.
Think about my point,
I got your point. I want to respond to it, but I just and you're right. They're not doing anything about it. That doesn't mean that it's not happening. That just means they're not. What's more? It means that. Hold on. It means that what's more important. Climate change is a product of basically industrial civilization, right? And industrial civilization is driven by wealth and power and technological progress.
But see, here's the thing.
And they don't want. Here's the thing. What's more important to them?
We had ice ages. We've had ice ages, and we've had global warming and global cooling long before the industrial age. See, you're buying into it must be us because it's happening. Well, no, it's happened before without that.
Okay. All right. Well, Joseph, come on in.
Hi.
Hey.
First on, before I forget, going back to Cornel West, and I have no real opinion other than what I think would help him or anybody that wants to expose true stuff and show a better way. He needs someone like Ralph Nader and Chris Hedges. Ralph Nader will tear anybody up in pretty much any kind of political debate, and he's knowledgeable enough in most fields to hold his own. He's going to have some lackings where you'd expect them, technical stuff, but we have seatbelts because of Ralph Nader. Right.
Well, I mean, I think Cornel West would do well to have. I mean, many advisors in his camp. Ralph Nader, Jimmy Dore should be his advisor, right? And they should all get in the team. Here's what you should do.
So, on the Jimmy Dore stuff, I don't really know what to say except he would get thrown off YouTube or lose a lot of his following, and whatever he really believes in his heart or mind about climate change, I've seen him go both ways, up and down, and I think you're right. He's just subject to the same forces as anyone, and to sit down and convince him, he'd really have to spend time and understand stuff because he's not going to believe anybody on their own merit for the most part. Right. And that's a credit in most ways, but he has to be willing to go the extra step, and that's my segue into your discussion with Lance.
Right.
And your last. Go ahead.
Well, he said something to the effect the other day of like, I think it's whatever the elites are doing is wrong. Yes, 100%. And everybody has said that from Derek Jensen to Will Falk and Max Wilbert and Michael Moore, Planet of the Humans. I mean, that whole movie was basically saying whatever they're planning for us, as an answer is wrong answer. Or what it is that they're proposing to be is the answer is incorrect. And I'm like, I can't argue with that. And it was a weird segment. That segment that Fantoma sent me with Jimmy Dore saying the elites are all just trying to use climate change as an authoritarian cudgel, and there's more coral than ever. And I think they're lying to us about whether it's happening or not. But what we should do is manage the damage. And I was like, what damage? Are you saying that there's damage? you know.
It's
So
a
he said like
contradiction,
three
right?
different things in the space of like a few minutes, and I was like, all right, which one is it? Because you're saying a lot of things here, you know.
So the linearity of the arguments are, of course, the downfall, and no
Right.
volume is being mentioned. Both, and that goes perfectly with the CO2 thing and the past ice ages. There was no thermal mass changes other than the natural stratification of Earth.
Can I chime in for 1 sec?
Well,
They can both be true. In other words, we could be having a real serious long-term climate change effect. I think what Jimmy Dore is saying is the same thing I'm saying. They're not doing anything about the military. They're putting up money, then they're giving it to the same corporations that caused it. They're not doing like a space program where they're really trying to fix it. So even if it's all true, it's like they're not doing anything about mitigation. By the way, let's take them at their word. Greta Thunberg and Al Gore. It's over if we don't do something in 5 years, they said 5 or 6 years ago. So according to their own predictions, they either have to have been absolutely false and 100% wrong, or if they're right, then it's too late anyway, and we better think about
okay. Well, that's
Those are all false.
to ameliorate the problem as opposed to fixing it.
what
Based
were you
on
gonna, Joseph? What do you have to say on that?
Those are all circular reasoning conclusions, Lance.
No, it's not.
You're
How
gonna
is that
have to let
circular?
me say this. I'll explain. So, because it's too far to mitigate, which there's never been any period of mitigation, every civilization tried to mitigate its way out of progressively worse shortages of what we refer to as resource. And as they did that, their environment altered to such a degree that they either perished or migrated. And there's all kinds of books you can read about that if you want to do that. In our current state, we have accelerated that process and expanded it to the globe. And we have restratified parts of Earth by density. And that changes everything. The circular reasoning is in saying because the elites aren't doing something. The elites don't typically understand things beyond saying, can this be done, to the people that work for them? And then those people refer to a group of engineers or statisticians or economists or a whole team, and they get together and try to figure out how to do that while making a
Well,
profit.
let me just clarify. Let me clarify what you're saying. Okay, so what you're trying to tell me.
I'll complete my portion here if it's all right. And from that point, the whole basis of industry depends on the belief system of the following and the people that live within it. And that's where you're at. And to get beyond that, you have to understand your relationship to the actual environment and what that means before you can make these arguments. Because that's the loop you're caught in.
If I understand what you're saying is that the elites are going to do things, they're not going to be clued in, they're going to make mistakes, and they're going to have their heads up their butt. So those are the things.
I'm not saying any rules. I'm saying basis, whatever makes the group or a person comfortable and feel safe is generally what they see.
Okay, so 2 quick points. So you're separating those same elites when they do that. It's that same set of elites, that are the ones that are telling us that global warming is happening and it's real. Now, I just want to ask one question to both you guys. I hope we realize that Fauci has been lying since the AIDS epidemic. I hope we know that we can't trust him. Can I ask the question?
Go for it.
I think hopefully we can agree. If you don't agree, then the question will fall flat. But assuming that you can't trust the quote unquote trust the science of the pandemic because they lied to us about like everything. Okay, and about a lot of other things, we all say, "Wow, boy, let's be skeptical." Once like I wasn't at first, but then you get the news and you get skeptical. For some reason, though, with climate change, the same people that lie to us about everything and these elites that you're talking about, all of a sudden with climate change, oh no, they're righteous and they're saying the right things and they really mean it. I don't buy it with this science any more than I do the science. But I just want to say one last thing, and I'm going to shut up for as well. You really would be black because you could just punch it up easier than I can, but it's about 2 minutes long, and it's Carl Sagan on Charlie Rose saying, "Don't trust the scientists. We have to educate ourselves to question the scientists."
Yes, that's right, Lance.
People.
That's right. That's absolutely right.
That's what I'm doing with global warming. But you seem to say that, well, no, we have to trust these elites, but not those elites.
No, that's not it. That's not it.
We're saying understand the physics that's underneath the science. That's what is being controlled by what literally is you and I. We desire to have electricity, cars, houses, roads. That drives the elites because they have the same basic desire, just from a different degree and perspective and level. And what's in between that is everything that's gray and black and white and colored. And how we interpret that is based on our knowledge and understanding that it's beyond the boundaries of what that's projecting at you. That's a lot to swallow in one statement. Sorry, Kevin.
Yeah, no, and well, I just want to further say, this is my understanding of climate change is not based on what somebody tells me, some powerful figure tells me. That's not my understanding of climate change. Is based on my own understanding. My basic understanding of physics, which is basic, but I have a basic understanding. So, I don't necessarily believe anything that doesn't ring true with me. Not just on a belief level, but on an observation level of looking at things for a long time, taking in data, observing, putting things together, right? The way a lot of people form their opinions on things. Let me put it to you this way, Lance, on the basis of, let's say, the pharmaceutical giants being so powerful, so big that they can literally convince an entire population that something is happening and that something that they made is going to be good for them, right? Let's say, flip that. You're separating elites, so on that level, just trying to make this clear. The elites are in league with the pharmaceutical companies, right, in perpetrating this deceit. So let's take where do the fossil fuel companies fall in this, right? Because we know that these huge corporations are, making oodles of profit at our expense, and they don't really care whether the things that they make for us are going to hurt us or help us or cure us or kill us, right? They don't care. They're just interested in telling us there's a problem. They're going to give us a cure. Do you think the fossil fuel companies are just like, yeah, we just love you and we just care about you and we just want you to have good things?
Can I add something?
Well, yeah, go for it, Joseph.
Okay, the fossil fuel companies, the biggest modern misconception is a separation between minerals and mining and fossil fuels. Minerals that were not obtainable by the technology of coal became oil, diesel-driven mining projects. And
right.
Before coal, it was water injection, etc., and the horse and drawn stuff,
right,
etc., etc. It is the stuff that drove the need and desire for the fossil fuels, and one cannot exist without the other. And
right.
That's very important because it's the same with global warming. They can't explain these cures without the misconception of disregarding all the thermal mass of everything that makes civilization.
Right.
Some people know that in those industries and some don't.
Right. And, but exactly, all of that is true. And my basic point was you have, the fossil fuel industry, which is, one of the linchpins of industrial civilization, who categorically know that they're destroying the planet, but have also categorically decided that they're going to tell everybody it's a hoax or it's, be skeptical, right? Literally like what everybody is saying, what Jimmy Dore, all the way through Charlie Robinson, all the way through all these journalists are saying, oh, it's not really a thing and there's plenty of oil and they're lying to us. Like that message benefits the fossil fuel companies, right? That message is fundamentally informing people about the reality of what's going on the planet, and it's beneficial to them in a very. They don't care whether their products hurt you, kill you, cure you. Right? They don't care. They're gonna pump every last drop of oil out and have you burn it on the way to your own demise.
That's
right?
no less
That's
true.
that's the plan. That is the plan, and it's still going on. That plan is still going on. So,
but what you're saying, but is no less true of the climate science industry, the climate change industry.
It's not an. I'm sorry, Lance.
Doing the same thing that the fossil fuel companies do.
Wait a second.
Hold on.
I can help that.
Yeah.
I can answer to that. So, Lance, here's what we're trying to say. Honestly, is
you let me flesh it. When you let me flesh it out, I'll give you the.
No, just hold on. The climate industry you're talking about is the part of the dichotomy of the mindset of all people in civilization that I'm trying to point at here. And I'm obviously failing to do that in your case. I'm sorry. But the truth is, if you shut off oil right now, you shut it off, the world keeps getting hotter just the same because of all the thermal mass that's been welled up, drilled up, mined up for the past 10,000 years. Until the solar system and Earth push that back in, the Earth is out of balance with itself internally. And the solar system and the metrics of Earth answer to that. That's the stuff not being talked about. And you have to learn physics to understand that statement enough not to have an argument against it. That's your responsibility.
Let me.
You said so yourself.
Can I refer back to Carl Sagan? This is such an important point. This is important. Okay, so Carl Sagan, as I mentioned, said, don't leave it to the scientists. Now, let me ask you this. They do have special grand juries for like certain kind of, I think, like financial stuff, but basically no. And, forensic science happens to be a lot of a joke. Okay, so people go in and they listen to blood spatter and they listen to two experts and they go in and they listen to technological stuff about environmental law, if you ever saw a civil action. And they sit there while experts that are scientists and PhDs in physics, we don't have you got to be a scientist to be on that jury. No, but you know why? Because you don't have to be a scientist. Okay, this is why I want to push back on what you're saying big time, and I'd rather agree with Carl Sagan. Can I finish the point? The idea that, so in other words, it's about the physics. It's about the physics. Well, two people with physics PhDs could have completely 180-degree opposite points of view. Just like two military experts could say, oh, no, Iraq was still a good thing, even without the WMD thing. Oh, no, it was the worst thing ever. So we make decisions as a society all the time, and juries are the best example, okay, is that we have people's literal life and death decisions are based with a lot of science and technology stuff, whether it's masses of people that died of cancer, an environmental thing, or whether it's some people that got shot up. We allow regular citizens with absolutely no special knowledge, not 1 ounce of any forensic.
Let me ask you a question.
Okay, and yet we trust juries to make these life and death decisions.
Nothing to do with
and you're saying, well, no, you just said, but I know enough of the physics that I could figure this stuff. No, that doesn't mean shit.
No, I didn't say that. I said your responsibility is to understand physics enough to know your arguments against what you're arguing from science.
My specific point. Then why do we trust juries? We don't give them a training. We don't say, now you guys got to know this basic physics. How is that possible? Do we have a faulty justice system when it works right? I don't mean that we have a good one.
No, it tells you that the justice system is not based in physics.
We do not look. They don't choose juries. I'm going to choose juries based on how much physics they know, because this is an important environmental case. They do it based on bias. They do it based on who they think is going to be favorable.
This is a logical fallacy argument, man.
No, you're saying
a logical fallacy argument. Physics
no, it's not a logical fallacy.
You're
trying to take. Wait a minute. I'm sorry, Joseph. What you're trying to do is take my words and put it on some higher intellectual plane, so you can argue against something I didn't say. Just respond to why do we trust juries if knowing and some more physics is going to be helpful to make decisions? We don't do that with juries. Why not?
We're talking about, is climate change real or not, and the individual's ability to discern that, Lance.
And we do that all the time with complicated environmental issues that involve whole towns and cancer rates. And they have to do statistical analysis, and they have to do scientific chemical analysis. I'm talking about juries based on what experts say about complicated environmental law.
Let me ask you Kevin, I've got to ask him some simple questions to understand whether he even is in the ballgame here. Do you know what would happen if you pushed a merry-go-round, Lance, with a block of steel sitting in the middle? The block of steel weighing a ton. Would the merry-go-round turn?
I believe it would, but let's assume I don't know the answer. Let's assume I'm
No,
wrong.
let's assume we do know the answer, and you believe it will, and you're right. It will. Now move
So
that
what?
same one. Move that same 1 ton to the edge of the merry-go-round. Now does
Okay,
it
but
move?
what? No, I guess the answer is going to be no.
Good for you. You just passed some basic physics.
But
That's
so
the
what?
same
What's that got
basic
to do with
physics
what I'm
you
saying?
need. That is the same basic physics you need to
I
understand.
get.
The
I more or
stepping
less
stones
guess.
to climate change.
I more or less guess, but then I thought to myself, when I hold a bat and it's near my hand, it's the weight is on the other end more than it is at my hand, because if I feel the weight at the other end. So therefore, at the center or at the end of the bat where I am is where I would want the weight. It would still swing, but if I put the weight on the end of the bat, I wouldn't be able to swing it because it would stop the whole bat. And it's a weird thing that I've always thought about. If you want to go on a tangent, it's baffling to me that when you look at a record, that little tiny circle versus a big circle at the end, you connect a line from the inner tiny circle to the outer edge. That line is going around at a consistent rate. It's not going faster. It doesn't look like it is. And yet, that line that's all connected to each other, if you drew an imaginary line from the center out, the edge has to go a lot faster than the inner part. How could it be going faster and still be connected to the same line? Right? Isn't that kind of a baffling, kind of a mental? Huh?
It's traveling less linear distance than what you're describing.
No, I know.
Earth.
I know that. I'm not
know,
saying
just let me add to what you said, okay?
Go ahead.
You're on the right. I mean, I'm giving you gratis here. So what you just described, with a lot more complexity, would be the inertial changes that we're causing on the Earth. And that's a consistent acceleration
but
against
I'm
the
saying that just because I
Earth.
can intuit that, just because I have a fairly, high IQ, whatever, big deal, like saying you can run fast, well, win a race that pays you money, and then you can say that your running matters. So I'm smart, big deal. So that doesn't mean shit. It's what Carl Sagan is saying. It doesn't matter if you have science knowledge and I have a good logical brain that can figure stuff out. It doesn't mean that you can have an 80 IQ and not understand the words. But once you get to a certain level of understanding, everybody's going to have, in other words, the life experience of a C student that got a GED, their life experience in a jury, just because they can understand the words. Now, you do have to have a basic understanding of the words, not the science. But once you have a basic, high school degree knowledge of stuff, and you're on a jury, that guy could have an insight. Oh my God, I never had kids. And they could have so much more knowledge that it doesn't matter how many books I read about kids, or whether I'm a child psychologist, or whether it's, so people bring their own expertise from life. And this is what we think is somehow lost, that, well, we're just regular people now. We got to have the expert. I just want to ask one more question of why would we trust, when you talk about the skepticism of all these other scientists and pharmaceutical companies with all their goals, but somehow we want to trust the scientists who are telling us stuff about climate change without the same skepticism. I find that baffling.
Hold on one second. I was just thinking. Yeah, I mean, thank you guys for the. I just want to ask you one more thing, Lance. Like, I mean, I think you believe that we have hurt. We have the capabilities of hurting nature, right? With pollution and poison and right. We can destroy nature through our use of microplastics and chemicals and endocrine disruptors, right? We have all those, that capability, right, of really doing some damage to the planet. And that's, again, I think Joseph has brought this up, and other people have brought this up. CO2 is kind of a boogeyman for climate change, right? Climate change is literally all of the things that we're doing. All of the poisoning, all of the chemicals, all of the destruction, all of the mining, all of the, resource extraction, all of the shipping, all of the flying, the driving, it's all of it. It's not just stuff in the air that's making the planet warmer. That's not the whole story. And so I think on that fundamental level, that is a thing that people that question climate change, they bring up all the time. Oh, how these molecules can make the planet warmer, and we don't believe this part of the science. And they've just, it's wrong on both sides, right? It's wrong for the people that are promoting, that are saying, hey, climate change is happening because of this molecule that's in the air. It's not just that. But it's also wrong for people who are denying science to just gravitate towards it's just CO2. We're not really warming the planet. There's been this much CO2 before. Like, that's all of that. All of those arguments are off the mark. If you just look at the amount of destruction that we can do and have done to the planet on all levels, right? The amount of lead we've put into the atmosphere, and the lead laying on the bottom of the oceans, and microplastics in the oceans, and microplastics in fish, and microplastics in the sea, and endocrine disruptors, and all the stuff that's the runoff from agriculture, and all of these things that are damaging the planet in so many different tiny ways that all add up into one large stomping of the planet, like, just to put it in very, very simple terms, like that. All of that is climate change. That is all climate change. And to the idea that we have the capabilities of doing so much damage to the planet, but no, clearly 8 billion people can't do anything to the planet. Like, that's an unhooking of your mind from reality on some levels, right? That's just like, that's, you understand physics, you understand that the weight of that 1 ton on the edge of the merry-go-round is going to behave differently than in the middle of the merry-go-round. You understand that. But when you say, like, well, you can move that ton of weight to the edge of the merry-go-round, but that doesn't mean anything. Well, it does mean something. It actually, or in the middle, how about 3/4 to the edge of the merry-go-round, or whatever. To say that doesn't have any, effect, is just, I don't know. It's a strange phenomenon in my mind that people can unhook this idea that we can actually, like, hurt ourselves in so many different ways. But climate change, no, we're fine. What we're doing is fine. We're great. Humans are great. We just want to love and care for each other, and that's not even true, right? Like, the idea that humans want to love and care for each other is not even true. There are a lot of humans don't operate that way. They're like, I want to get mine, and I want to make sure that I get it, and I don't give a F who gets in my way. Yeah. Like, that's just totally how, like you said, Lance, you might be a good runner, but if you can't make any money from it, well, then it doesn't mean anything. That's how humans operate.
You get your good health, but yeah, no, I know what you mean. But if I can make two quick points. One is that, I love mankind. It's people I can't stand, like Woody Allen said. But so I love people. But the best thing that could possibly happen to this. I'm saying it's possible that the best thing this planet could do is to eliminate all the humans, because all this stuff about we're ruining the planet, the air we breathe. It's like, and of course we're hurting fish and animals too. But the idea was very anthrocentric. We're always worried about what it's doing to people. Maybe if we got rid of all the people. If all the people were just perished overnight, the earth would get a lot healthier, a lot faster. So there you go. I'm not a people hater. I'm really not. I'm not an apocalyptic nihilist. The other thing I would say is this. It's like there was a guy who was caught by, one of these, like, surreptitious reporters, and it was an Exxon executive. And he said, we don't care about all this talk about, renewables and all this stuff, because we know that the feckless cons, they're not going to do anything about it. So that's why they did recycling. Let's put them over here let's get everybody distracted with recycling because it ain't going to work, and we know it. But then we can do all this other stuff. If I wanted to infiltrate, and if I was a fossil fuel executive, you know what I would tell people? Look, man, we're doing so much poisoning of the air and the water like we used to in the 70s. We're getting away with it because they took away all the Clean Water, Clean Air Act, SCOTUS and all that. So what we're doing is we're saying to people, we need everybody. Like Horton Hears a Who. If we don't have 199 out of 200 nations getting on board with everything, we're going to be apocalyptic. So what people say is, oh my God, this thing is so overwhelming. And this is a tactic. Make it so overwhelming that there's nothing we can do about it. That's global warming. Keep your eye on global warming. Meanwhile, Roundup, they keep getting laws in America. Stuff that's banned all over the world keeps going and going and going. Roundup, and all the things that they're doing that's polluting us out of existence in a real way. Okay, that's not global warming.
But
so that's all I'm telling you. It's part of the hoax.
Okay.
It just
Thanks, Lance.
Kevin,
make
Thanks.
us think that it is
Hold,
such a
hold on,
worldwide-
hold on. I gotta end the show soon. But one more, whatever you got to say, Joseph. If you could say it pretty quickly.
This is what I pull my hair out about is what's apocalyptic and what's not apocalyptic. Here's a certainty, Lance, if you get to the physics enough, starting from the merry-go-round. In about 40 years or so, you've got 1,000-foot king tides coming at you. Those will cross continents and wipe everything in their path out. And that's just fact, not a conjecture or a wish. I'm projecting the time.
CEO,
but
you
that's
care?
not-
Do you
not
think they care?
And before that even happens, our own systems of delivery of goods is going to be, if not completely collapsed, it's on its way. And you got plenty of people telling you that. So you got to get around this idea that these hoaxes are going on because pundits are saying something or not doing something. They don't know what to do, even if they know it's true. They don't know.
And they don't know how, they can't really even put it together, like emotionally, right? And internally, it's hard to come to grips with, right? Which I think is at the bottom of a lot of human existence, right? Right now, there are several billion people on the planet who understand that something is very, very wrong. That we're approaching something that we can't avoid, and they don't, they want to do everything but acknowledge it, right? Or talk about it, or come face to face with it, and that's driving also that huge emotional underpinning is driving a lot of like people's actions, right? It's driving a lot of not just denialism, straight up denialism, but soft denialism, or just like, yeah, I don't want to think about it, I wanted to talk about it, yeah, I don't think it's that bad. There are so many levels of understanding of it or not understanding of it, which I think is just also very human. It's a very human reaction. It's not,
Do you think that's helpful to the cause, though, to be so overwhelmingly apocalyptic? And these predictions, I remember these old jokes in the 60s, these cartoons, the world will end today. And then it's crossed out today, So Greta Thunberg said, we're done. If we don't do this in 5 years, if we don't eliminate fossil fuels.
but you have it.
Gore said about the
That's
ice cap.
that's a misunderstanding.
I'm just saying, I'm not trying to argue against you. I'm saying if you're a really strong advocate for fixing this stuff, why would you make those predictions knowing they might not come true? In other words, aren't they just shooting themselves in the foot with
I
these predictions that don't come true?
I agree with you that it's the people that have to communicate these things to other people are not doing a good job. They're not doing a good job at all.
And
right?
I'm not saying there's nothing to do.
The same crowd, though,
saying
that
there's
you want to
lots
trust
to do.
generally about global warming. The
Right.
same people who have obviously been 100% wrong. Oh, no, but they're right in the long run. It's like you're trying to say, well, no, they're wrong about that. But the same people, this is Greta Thunberg and Al Gore. Those are the ones that are running the global warming thing. So you're saying they're full of shit, but we should still trust them. I find that very strange.
I'm not. No, that's not what I'm saying. Anyways, I gotta go, guys. I'm sorry. Thanks for calling in. I appreciate the conversation, y'all. Yeah, it's been grand. It's been great. It's been another Friday show on Black Bear News, and thanks to all the callers that called in, and thanks for having the discussion, Joseph and Lance and William. All right, guys. Before I go, great ways to support the show: PayPal.me/Kevin Sandbloom, Venmo @Kevin Sandbloom, Cash App @Red Llama Music, buymeacoffee.com/Black Bear News. Thank you, everyone who does support the show. I appreciate you. You know who you are. Peace out, guys.